Yeah. Welcome. That's a horrible little. Oh yeah, I don't have a good lighting strategy. Strategy. Stephanie. No, disassemble Stephanie. Oh, you want to go this way. Horrible developer. Need to get better. Fuck Troy. Well, there we go. All right, that's what I wanted to find. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to session. I think it's session 5. Amy, is that correct? Session 5. Session 5. So, couple things. I'm reorganizing my trail mixes. I'm reorganizing the class structure. You don't have everything. I actually have a YouTube. The first 4 classes are up on YouTube. I found some settings out. I did some pretty cool stuff. I didn't even realize it myself. Let's see. Hang on a second. These are all things I tend to watch. So let's see. My YouTube studio. And we'll jump on it. And I have a playlist. I'm going to. Where's my. Make a new tab. Let's see if that opened it. I think it did. Yes, it did. So yeah. All right. So I'm going to put that in the chat window. More organization is coming. It's just taking a little minute. But it's coming. So I put that in the chat window to everybody. If you want to see the recordings, I'm going to post them in YouTube after our class. Because I figured out, I said, look, this is a lesson for an admin, okay? You do stuff and you forget, right? And so I did something and I forgot. What I did was I loaded up an app in my Zoom that automatically records. Instead of going to the Zoom cloud, it automatically takes it to YouTube, uploads the video privately. I got to go back, make a few changes. Make sure that I get it. Networking thing we're talking about. For some reason, my hardwire connection is not connecting. So, what else? All right, and all right. So what that means, and so I'm still in the organization process. So hang in there. It's coming, but it is coming. So that sucks. Anyway, so I set up this feature in my Zoom integrations that just uploads it automatically. And then I forgot that I did it. And then it was happening. And I was like, why is it happening? I had to go back and research it. But I learned a lot of cool stuff, added some more applications, and it was pretty cool. So let me get the rest of the folks in the room. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I have a feature set up to have you guys in the waiting room before I let you in so that I'm here. For security reasons, down the road, given the room that we're using, my personal room. I may be changing the invite again, so the Zoom link might go custom. So look for some changes there. It's a learning journey we're on, and we're going to hang, we're going to ride this pony together. So a couple of things. Let's see where my pars are. So welcome, everybody. Okay. All right, so apologize for the disorganization in the organization, but we're getting it squared away. The most important thing is that that you really have gotten to a certain point right now where we've kind of going through what I call phase one. I'm not sure if you've done all of these. Again, I'm working on some of that stuff right now. But, understanding the CRM experience, we went through what it's like to, log into Salesforce, to go through the front end. And admins don't typically work with the front end, but working with your users, and make sure you test the user experience. You have to know how it works, right, in order to test it. So we went through the CRM for Lightning experience. We talked about the accounts and contacts. Those are different objects of data. Those are the core objects of Salesforce, right? In customer relationship management, we're going to have a customer. And since it was designed B2B, business to business, every one of our customers as a company with employees is dealing with another company with employees. So that's an account record, and then the contacts. And then we talked about the sales process, using basically that robust Rolodex. And those of you that are too young to know what a Rolodex is, Google it. It's the way you kept track of all of your network. There wasn't an online. You had literally a box of business cards that were organized by company or by name, whichever way you did it, or both, if you had a dual system like some. And, we talked about that. And then when we launched that into the sales process, and again, I'm kind of doing a review catch up, we talked about leads and opportunities. Leads being what? How do I define? Matt, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm not seeing those on the trailhead that you sent through the chat window. Is it?
I sent you the chat window. I sent the link to the, hang on a second. This is the phase one. Let me send you this in the chat window. Thank you, Matt. And then I'll have all this stuff put together and all in one place. This is phase one. Oops. The basics, right? We've already done this stuff. I did it in a different trail mix, and then I jacked up the trail mix. So I did all these things to myself, but we're catching you guys up. And what we haven't really talked about much yet is reports, dashboards, and chatter. We haven't really talked about that much yet. Reports, once you so the leads, let's go back to leads and opportunities. All right, good so far. So I put the videos for the first 4 sessions in the chat. And then I put phase one for this trailhead in the chat. And if you have any of these that don't have a checkbox, please, do it. And hang
I got
on.
a 404 for that link.
Which one?
Yeah, same.
It's like the phase one link.
Hang on. Get ready to refresh it. It's because you made it private for some reason, Matt.
Oh, my fault.
I don't know if it's the.
There we go. We're in now.
Yep, it should be the same, right?
Great, thank you.
All right, and then all right. So let's finish this. So leads and opportunities. Leads are like business cards. They contain company and personal information all in one little place. While you make your calls, find out if it's a real business, if the real person works there, if they have a real potential for your product, and if they do, you can convert that lead into an account and contact, because as you connect more with that lead, sometime in the sales process, you're going to meet more people at that company if there are any. You're going to discover more places that that your solutions fit their needs, and those will turn into opportunities. Opportunities are sales conversations. So leads are like business cards, accounts are like companies, contacts are like people. And then, of course, opportunities are like sales conversations. I'm interested in selling you this phone, and once you buy that, I'm going to sell you this battery charger, which even charges in the sun. Yeah, right? It's all the features and benefits. Yippity-doo. So but they're separate conversations, so they're separate opportunities for you to make money, and they are separate activities associated with each one, so that at some point you can calculate at some data level your rate of return on your investment of time, energy, and resources. Because the goal of Salesforce is to actually convert all of your choices about how to spend your time, energy, and resources into the most valuable things that you've learned over time. And so what humans don't do very well is learn. This is a learning tool. So it captures all that information so you can reflect back on it and get good data and not feelings, right? Sometimes we operate off our instincts, which are confused by our feelings. And it could just be a burrito you ate and made you all upset. And you don't even know what happened. And so you make bad decisions. So you got to make good decisions with good data so that it's real and it's for true, as we say in New Orleans. Now, the last part is that reports and dashboards. We haven't really talked much about this. We're going to go deeper into that. But if you haven't at least gotten the overview of what it is, it's pulling that data back out so you can better understand how you're choosing to spend your time, energy, and resources for the return that you're getting. That's where reports and dashboard lives. And of course, chatter, when you have an organization of more than one, it's an ability to interact with the other users that are logged into your org so that you can communicate specifically about records that you have a question, comment, concern, or some reason to communicate about.
Dominic, I have a quick question about chatter.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned that it was with people with inside the org, but doesn't with chatter you can actually also communicate with people outside the org?
You can, but you actually make them a user in your org. So what happens is they become a user in your org, not with a full Salesforce license that costs a lot of money, but with rather a free license called a chatter free license or chatter external. Whether they're, because they could even be people that work for your company, right? That have a little more access than say a customer that's in a private group.
Makes sense.
So what I did in I'll bring up my org right here because it's actually good to actually look at it. So chatter, and this is where I got stuck. My org, and Brian, it was your fault because I was doing it with you when it all broke. My org, I've got, and I've tried to invite you guys to do this so far, but it hasn't really worked yet. Amy's having trouble with the interwebs, I think. Wait a minute. And jumping back in and out. So this is a chatter group. And this is supposed to be the chatter group for our class. But the problem is only a few people were able to add themselves. And when I tried to add you guys to this group with a sales and technology email address, because that thing failed, but I figured out how to do that too. And we're getting that all squared away to get everybody their email address. That didn't happen this weekend. But Julia works for Computer Future, Zach. And so, but I can communicate with Julia from within this group, but she cannot see the part of Salesforce that comes with a paid license, like leads, accounts, contacts, and opportunities. So yes, you can have people outside your org, but they're really inside your org as a user.
Okay.
Yep. And I am actually going to switch over to Classic for a second. I'll show you what was happening here. Because it's a good distinction, and you need to know it for the test anyway. But these are the kinds of things that I want you to practice either in your live org or your developer org, which is your live org, to go, to see how this stuff works. So let's look at this. So I went to Setup, and I went to Users. And, there's a couple ways to add users in Chatter. So one way that I thought of doing it was I just, pop up another Chatter here. I went to my Chatter group, and I grabbed everybody's, I had a spreadsheet. I'll go to my Chatter group. And one way to invite users inside your company would be on the action button here all to the right. It's to call invite people. And I can just drop email addresses in here, and it'll shoot the required formatted email so that everybody can just basically log in to the org. Now, it didn't work. I think it was my email addresses that were screwed up at the time. We'll get that again. We'll try it again. But I think there's a problem because when I went to the user records and I tried to add a new user. Zach will use you. Well, no, let's see who we got. Yeah, we'll use Zach for a second. Zach. How do you spell your last name? P-I-T-Z?
Yeah, B-I-T-Z-E-R.
E-R, Bitzer. Okay. Yeah. And then what is your email address, Zach?
Zach Bitzer at Gmail.
Now, The problem, if I try to set you up as a chatter free user, will it let me do it? We'll see. I don't think it will. All right, let's see. You're on the East Coast, right, Zach?
Correct.
Just because I'm a good guy, I'll do it for you. Tell me if you get see, okay, duplicate username. Oh yeah, I got to use it. So Zach Bitzer. Now you're not going to get this email, but you might get this email. Let's see if that works. There might be an error or maybe not.
Let's see.
All right. That might be the solution that I was looking for.
Yeah, I just got it.
All right. And then click on it, Zach. And then activate. And then I'll show you, by the way, how you get your username. So your zach.bitzer@salesandtechnology.com as a username. Maybe I complicate it because, again, listen, everything that happens in Salesforce, you have to test. Because however you remember it, it could have changed yesterday. And literally, yesterday equals 4 months because things do change. So Zach, when you do get in, let me know. Oh, look at you, you're already in.
Yeah, I'm in your chat right now.
So you're in. So I duly note that you can add somebody that way. So that's good to go. I think I know why that allowed it to happen. Let me go back to your user. Because notice your email address has a Gmail in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I set you up as a chatter-free license. So let me show you what I have here. Because I have a username, I'm sorry, an email. So in this record, I set up a dummy account called Trying This. It's an added account on my account. And because the email ends in Gmail, it thinks everybody with a Gmail that I work for Gmail, that my company has Gmail in it. So it's one of those dangerous little loopholes in Salesforce where when you whitelist your employees, it looks to the URL that at least one of your full-fledged paid-for licenses has in order to allow other users with that email domain to get chatter-free licenses. It's the way they allow the difference between chatter-free and chatter external licenses. Now, does anybody know the difference between chatter-free and chatter external licenses? What's the difference between them?
You have to pay for it?
You don't have to pay for either one,
Oh.
but chatter-free are designed for your internal employees or the people that are part of your organization that is paying for Salesforce. Mm-hmm. Chatter external are for people specifically outside of your organization, customers, contacts, partners, vendors, those kind of things that would naturally have a different email address as the domain name, right? Or the URL. So what I just demonstrated to you is how I got around adding a Gmail email to my org as an internal company. And the reason it did that was because I have at least one user with a paying license that has at gmail.com. I could not do it at yahoo.com because I don't have any paid licenses that have an email with that domain. So it's one of these little very technical things, but it kind of lets you see that Salesforce creates these divisions of access to data. And that'll serve us well to understand that when we get into the security model, which is way more complex than what we're talking about right now. So if you're confused now, just let it. That's your mind breaking up old ideas and trying to fit in the new ideas, and you'll be good to go. So Divya is going to the 5-day class next week, and she's gonna have a lot of chance for her brain to do all of that, because that's what's gonna happen when you reframe your thoughts to the accurate information. You got to break the bond. So do that. Like, understand that that's just part of the learning. That's the the feeling of learning. So again, Salesforce and the security model, one of the key attributes of Salesforce is trust, and you can't have trust without security. So Salesforce is very rigid about its security model. So a Salesforce license allows somebody to access all of the features and data that a full Salesforce license allows. Now, it's also based on the kind of license you got. I've got the Essentials Edition Salesforce license. There's also a Professional Edition Salesforce license. There's an Enterprise Edition Salesforce license. Then you could break out the clouds, which include, by the way, all the clouds for the most part. I'm saying that for the most part because, right? But then you could even buy a cheaper license that's just Service Cloud or just Marketing Cloud, which it's funny that I said it was a cheaper license, different license, because a Marketing Cloud license is way more expensive. But they don't need access to all the other things. They need access to certain things, different towers or objects, tables of data. So depending on those things, I can, chatter free. And if you run out of chatter free, you can get more. So Salesforce divides access to the features and the data based on the license that you have. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So in chatter, for those of you that are in the chatter group, you can interact with people. Now, in this kind of group, this is a public group. And let's look at the members. We got Zach, we got Gil, we got Julia, we got Amy, Brian's in there. So Amy was in there. Oh yeah, Amy's in there. So these are notice there's two different kinds of members, right? So I've got members here that are my coworkers that are not licensed with the full Salesforce. And then I've got Amy and I who are paying for a license with Salesforce. So we have a different level of access. So we can communicate within records, whereas you can only communicate within the group. So that's the way chatter works in that first phase of the trail mix, phase one. So again, if you haven't, in that first trail, who did I lose? I think I lost Amy again. In that first trail, if you haven't completed these little sections, then make that part of your homework. And again, I'll make it so you can go back and go through it. And then chatter administration for Lightning talks about the kind of things that chatter can do and how to get started with chatter. Amy's back again. All right, thanks for fighting your way back, Amy. I'll then send you the phase two, which then gets into a lot more. So I want to make sure you guys are comfortable with really the basics for, and we've done a little bit of this, but not formally, where we've talked about the Salesforce platform itself. And I'll actually get into this in a minute, but I want to make sure you get, this is what we're going to cover about the platform itself, the Trailhead environment, the stories that a lot of the learning examples are based upon, because it's based on seeded data inside your developer org or inside Trailhead. So there's certain conversations we can have as if we're working in the same company with the same people. So that'll be phase two. I'm pretty sure I'm going to send you guys on that one. But what we're going to do today is we're going to finish up to make sure that we understand reports and dashboards, because we haven't gotten to that. And then we talked a little bit about chatter, but we're going to jump into it a little more. And I just want to see if you guys have any questions or anything that's been brewing up, because we missed our Q&A this week. So if you have any questions or areas of confusion, anything like that, before we start talking about customizing anything or all those guys, we want to get some more of this is like the user interface stuff. So what, if anything, do you have any questions about anything we've covered so far? I'm going to unmute you. So if you're doing anything weird, stop it. If you're not listening, we'll find out. Okay. So you're now unmuted, unless you. tried to unmute yourself, then we probably conflicted. All right, so that sounds like it was Pearl.
She excuses herself.
That's okay, totally fine. Does anybody have any questions? And if you don't, you can just put yourself back on mute and we'll be good to go. That's one way I'll know. And that's everybody but Julia, but I think Julia's just on the phone piece. I don't know if we can hear her anyway, so make sure she's good to go. Zach, you have a question about anything?
I'm looking through real quick to see if I have anything. It's actually funny. I literally just took I just had another class over reports and dashboards.
Yeah.
For all this. So fortunately, I've been pretty cut off to date.
No worries. We're gonna go over reports and dashboards next anyway. This is make sure that you kind of understand where it's all at and how it works.
Dominic, the only thing that I've had a little bit of trouble with is importing things from the App Exchange.
Well, that's because you're way ahead. But no, yes. And why do you think that's the case? Give me an example of what happened to you.
Basically, I think that I had to go back to Classic actually, just as I'm working on my work computer, and it wasn't compatible with a bunch of it. But I think it was more just around being in the App Exchange and not necessarily knowing where to click and where to look. But after screwing around with it, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit ahead of the curve. It came up on one of the other modules, so I guess I was just running into it.
No, you're not alone. So that's what look. The App Exchange is a little what's the word? Weird. So there's a couple. That's why I'm saying that. So when you can get to the App Exchange a couple different ways. So you can get to it from within your org, and you can then search apps. You can also go directly. There's lots of things in the App Exchange. We'll cover a little bit more, or you can go right to the App Exchange website. One of the things that I like to do, and you got to look for the filters for the App Exchange. It depends on what you're looking for. And depending on, so we'll start here. So there are different kinds of things on the App Exchange. The first thing there are is applications, which are really just a set of customizations that were a set of customizations that are, that's the way I want to put it, packaged and put out. Somebody spent a lot of money to customize Salesforce, and then they said, let's spend a little bit more and let's make some money on it, and let's become a partner, and let's share this with the world because it works for us. And if you do this thing, we solve this problem with our app. You don't have to build it. You can just simply buy it. And the price for some of those things are free or paid or discounted for nonprofits. Now, why would you say, well, why would people sell it for free? Well, a couple reasons. One, it's just easy, and it was, Salesforce does a lot of those with Salesforce Labs. But another reason to do a free app is if you're a partner like I am and you're working on a free app, it's a marketing tool for your business. So a lot of partners develop applications so that the world can, get stuff for free, and that puts them in relationship with the people who do it. They provide support. They provide, oh, that's really good, or it doesn't work for me like this, or upsell to the paid version, cross sell to some type of consulting, or downsell to some something else for somebody else. So there's lots of reasons why you have that. Now there's other things on the App Exchange. So the first thing, I'll do is search for free. And then the next thing, you got to pick your edition. That's why the edition is so important. So in the edition, you got to kind of limit what it is you're looking for. So sometimes, Julia, to answer your question, if you are, if you're in the developer edition and you want to download an app that's just for the developer edition, sometimes it's good to filter for just those apps, because the app may not be compatible with your edition. And that will cause a problem when you do that. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's not always it. That just could be it, right? So then you apply those filters, and then you can see the things that you want to see, and then read the descriptions. You can save them. You can, so if you find one you really like, you can take this one. And the ones that you can count on the most if they're free, are the ones from Salesforce Labs. And here they give you whether it's lightning ready or not, what type of package it is, what's the version that it's most compatible with, what anything custom that it builds, what requirements do you need, what additions. So here I'm in the Essentials edition, so this works great. There's usually some type of guidance or resource material, and it's like a lot of the way we purchase or make decisions nowadays. It'll also give you suggestions about what other people that kind of look like you do inside Salesforce. And the great thing about Salesforce is that all the apps have gone through a security review, so you can definitely go. I got you, Zach. I got your question.
I appreciate it.
Yep. And then you can get an idea, and then when you're ready, you can just download it. Typically, what you need to do is you need to log in. It wants to know you're you, and this again is different. There's lots of different ways to get to the same place. But once you log in, if it sees a couple things that could happen here too is that sometimes if you're logged into more than one org at a time, the gremlins and the gadgets and the widgets and the zaps inside your computer may read the wrong accounts. You got to make sure you're logging in with the right username. And remember, every username is unique, so the username should tell you which org that you're actually in. So there's always a one-to-one relationship with the org ID and the username of an individual. Never will you find more than one username out in the world. There are a few slight exceptions, but they're typically in the community. I don't want to say where it is, but there's different clouds. You may get a chance to repeat one. Now I'm having a problem with my computer with these pop-up windows. There's some kind of security going on because I have a pop-up window right now in Internet Explorer, and it's still with LinkedIn, and it's still not getting it up. So was that your problem by any chance?
Yeah, I think it honestly was something with like access and just permissions or something like that.
Now, I was having trouble with this way, so I'll tell you what I did. I went out and I went directly to the App Exchange. Sometimes if you log in different from a different place, it acts different. Why? Because it's a computer built by people who don't like people. What am I supposed to do? Fix them? So this way I'm going to do the same, kind of look like it was the same thing, but it's a little bit different. Because instead of trying to go from within my org, by the way, I'm only showing this because it didn't work the way I expected it to work. I'm trying to see if it's even working the way I expect it to work now. There it is. So it found me, it logged me in, and now if I want to go, again, it gets a little bit confusing. Now, here's the thing about the test. There's always at least one question about the App Exchange on the test. You might not know which one, but I guarantee you one of the answers has App Exchange in it. I'm not saying it's the only answer with App Exchange. I'm not saying it's the only question as an App Exchange answer, but there usually is one. And so, again, if I'm searching for, let's see, and it gets a little weird. You can actually, there's a lot of free solutions. I think I was going for, so solutions by type. Here we go. Let's go to apps. Now, there's a couple other types of solutions. There's flows, there's Bolt, there's components. With Lightning, all those little boxes you see on the screen are components, and you can actually get people customize that to do different stuff. Right? And then here you go. You can actually change your filters. I want free only. I'm going to apply those. And I'm going through this way because I actually want to install something from the App Exchange. But I did that already. What is this one? Let's see. English only. You can pick the cloud. It's an okay filtering. Where is it? Not the one by. So some of these are, you know, when they say free, they're not always, they're not completely free. I don't remember which one it was. I was gonna. What's this one? All right, let's try this one. This one's I like it. It's Closer. So again, you could go in. You could read the description. I'm just gonna get it because it's a. Why don't you know that I gotta? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it's something's acting weird. They just had an update with all this trailblazer. So there's a little bit of there's some stink in the water. So why does it not know that I'm already logged in? I don't know. It just yeah, I know. I know. That's why I'm logged in. Let's see. All right. I don't know. So yeah, it gets a little stupid. And I've got a little, I think it's a problem with my computer because it just, or my browser, because something just happened where I can't log in like I'm supposed to be able to in the app exchange. So does that help, Julia?
Yeah, I think that like I have the same experience kind of like that you have. So at least it's just like challenging in general.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. Then you got to, now here's the other real world example, right? So if you go, let's see if I can visit the app exchange. So if you go and you run into trouble, where do you go when you have this kind of trouble? So you're running the org for your company. Now I was gonna say the other reason, Julia, you might not be able to install an app is if you're trying to install it into, say, Computer Futures org, what do you think would prevent you from installing software into your company's org?
My permissions.
Yeah, you ain't got no damn business doing that. That ain't your business. You're not the administrator for the whole org, right? That's the administrator's job. So you probably don't have the permission to make that happen.
Right.
All right, so if I have help, I can actually say, you know, my app exchange. That creates a case. They already have your contact information because you put it in your org as your company information, your profile, your contact information. All that stuff comes to help you or haunt you if you fill out the data. So there it is. I contact support. I got a ticket. They'll email me. There you go. Zach, you ready? What's your question?
Yeah, so my question actually has to do with dashboards, reports and dashboards.
Yep.
I remember working in a Trailhead, and actually I think I completed it, but I really don't remember how, and maybe I should get a refresher on it.
Yeah.
But I remember it asking with one of the dashboards, it wanted you to make a filter where it showed 50%, or like it's like showed like the opportunities that had a 50% or greater chance of being closed.
Yep.
And I was just wondering if you could like run through that real quick to show me how that's done. Because I remember actually like really struggling with that, and somehow I got the whole badge done. But now that it kind of comes to mind, I remember having a really big problem with that.
Here's the learning point. The answer is yeah. I'll kind of get to it in a minute. When we go through reports, I'm going to go through reports quickly in the next hour and 20 minutes or so. But reports and dashboards are based upon real-time data. Now that data is only as good as how you can make sense of it to make a good decision, right? So what you're talking about is the underlying report. And I'm gonna go to, let's just see. I'm gonna go my activity. These are my revenue generating activities, right? The activities that I made on an opportunity. 3 total records. Oh, more than burning it up, right? Now, what we'll do is we'll get, so you got a report. Let me go back a second. A report is nothing more than a presentation of data that you previously saw in, it's either as a dashboard component or as a chart or in a subscription in an email, right? So it's live data, and you can see that these are all of my subject lines, different subject lines for my opportunities. These are the owner, right? This is just presenting me data in a way that I can manipulate to make good sense out of it, right? So I could see who had, what type of calls did I make for these things and how did it go? And I could see a chart for that or not. Either one's fine, but it's presenting me data back. Now, let's talk about that. So in the first or second class, we talked a lot about list views. So list views are when I'm looking at in a tab, which is an object that represents the object or the table of data. So if I'm looking at all my leads, it's kind of like my little internal spreadsheet, hashtag stop using spreadsheets. It's like a spreadsheet in that it presents data to me in columns and rows that I'm familiar with in most data. And a list view filters from all open leads to maybe the leads I haven't read yet. I think there's still a bunch because we imported a bunch of leads, 31, to the leads that today's leads, if I have any today's leads. I got nothing today. So it takes out the individual records from that table of data and presents them to you both in a table view or a list or that Kanban view, depending on what it is. Now, why do I say that? Well, because it's just like a mini report, except you're limited to just the data that is, you're limited to just the data from that object. So no crisscross applesauce on the data that you're going to see. So how do you meld?
So funny. I told Suzanne that.
What? Are you talking to me, Julia, or somebody else?
Oh, sorry. No.
That's all right. All right. So the next level of reporting, so this is like a level of reporting. So I'm in leads. I want to pull up, based on whatever search criteria I have, the records that match my search. Well, that's all a report is as well. So in a report, I'm doing the same thing. It can be from one object or multiple objects combined. So if I'm looking at the activities logged on an opportunity, those are different than activities logged on any other kind of record. How do I know? Well, because it's the kind of report that I made. So you can see a couple of things. So I hit the edit button, and I'm now looking at the editor in Lightning of a report. So here's some good basic information about a report. Number one, when you start at the top, you'll see that you're in a report. You know you're in the editor because the first thing you'll see is the name of the report with a little pencil, so you can edit the report name. Remember, hover to discover. So as you move your mouse pointer across, you can then sort of get little pop-ups on what everything is. Now this activities with opportunities, there'll always be a little bubble there, and that's called the report type. A report type is the type of data you're reporting on. A report type is the type of data you're reporting on. I'm going to say it one more time so you get the point that this is on the test. Report type is the type of data you're reporting on. They just call it a report type. We'll talk about different report types and how to customize report types as we go through the class, but it's basically saying, show me all my contacts, show me all my leads, show me all my opportunities. Just show me my activities against an opportunity versus all my activities. So it's a layer of filtering. It's a little slice of the pie. So Report type is the type of data that you're reporting on. The way you present that data to yourself is the format. What do I mean by format? Well, we're subtotaling the activities by opportunity by each owner of an opportunity. That is a grouping. That is a sub. It takes all the data and sorts it, right? It segregates that data by opportunity owner and then shows you all the stuff you want to see. You see the difference? So it is, it's based on a subtotaling or a grouping. And I am grouping by owner and then subject. So I'm creating what's called a summary report. That's one of the formats. So when you think about this, the type of report is activities that have opportunities. That's the data that I'm reporting on, the type of data that I'm reporting on. The way that I see it is either going to be in a tabular view, like a list view, a summary, or if I wanted to see something like I have a month, close month, yeah. By opportunity close month, this is the fun part, right? So I'm now adding a column. Taking out one of my subtotals. I'm looking at my close month. And now don't worry about how I'm doing all this, but I'm going to group my my activities by week. Actually, it's a little confused. So I'm going to group it by month. And again, you know the goal? The goal is present your data in the way that makes the most sense. So now I'm not looking at a grouping by Dominic. I'm looking at a grouping by Dominic, because that's me. Let me take the chart out. By Dominic and then by month. What are the months that I created these activities? That's not possible, right? So that's a matrix report. In Excel, you'd call it a pivot table. But this is a matrix. I'm grouping by rows and then by columns. You could do 2 by 2. If I was just doing groups, I could do 3 to 4. I don't remember what the total is anymore. They never really ask you the number because that's stupid. You just group as many times as you can. The point is, and I could take my details out so I don't have to see it, but I'm looking at the owner and by month, what are the count of my activities? What are the count of my activities by month? So there's one more kind of format called the join report, which we're not going to cover right now, but it's another kind of report, and I'll show you. Where is it in here? It's not in this one for some reason, but I'll show where it lives. This is this. I don't know if it might be this report. That's why it's not doing it. It's not, because I don't have the account in there. Anyway, I'll pull up something. I'll show you a join report. A join report's another format that basically takes several reports and joins them together. It's an ugly report used for ugly things. So I'm going to close this and just show you that reports come in. So let's click on this. So I'm going to click on new report. When I click the new report button, I have to choose the report type. So pay attention to all these steps. What does the report type mean? Somebody put it in chat or unmute yourself. What does the report type mean? Somebody's got to get this.
The type of data you're reporting.
Exactly, the type of data you're reporting on. So do I want to see accounts and contacts? So there's accounts, contacts and accounts, contacts and accounts, and MailChimp subscription, accounts with contact roles, accounts, blah, 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 blah. It's all different joins. I'm just going to do accounts and contacts. That'll bring in 2 tables of data. And I believe, let's leave that alone. See, notice the data type, contacts, and accounts. So a couple things. So the report type also determines the number of fields that you can report on. What fields are available to you in your report is based on the report type. So if you notice on the very left-hand side, you'll see there's a little arrow. I click that little arrow and open up my fields. If I hide the fields, you see where it says fields? If I click that little arrow, I can show the fields that are available to me to put on the report. So think of all the fields that are in your object, and you want to pull out the most relevant data to tell whatever story data-wise that you want to create. So I don't have any formula fields, so there's nothing there. Here are my contact fields. They're grouped together. There's my contact address fields. Notice I'm just collapsing all the little buckets. Contact fields, account fields, general, which means standard. Address fields, they're not really standard, but generally speaking, the kind you like. And then any custom fields that you've created. So if you want to search on those. Now, you could just type in the field, like the name of the field I want, owner. I want the owner role name. So now that I typed in, I see the field I want, I can drag that field to a column, or I can drag it to a group and group by that, whatever makes sense to me. Now here's the magic of Salesforce, right? This is sort of like my teaching you to run a marathon. I can teach you to run a marathon in less than a minute, but it's going to take you 6 months to be conditioned enough to actually run the marathon. Same holds true for reports. It takes a few clicks to learn how to do a report. It takes years of trial and error, question and answer, hope and praying, don't get fired, maybe get fired a couple of times, to then figure out how to do reports well. So my coaching on reports is get help. If you're not good at it, you're going to have to go through a period of not being good at it until you are. Just like formulas. You're going to wrestle with it until you're good. So I'm going to show you how to do it, but if you don't have a report mind, then we'll work on those skills to see if you can apply that. So I got fields that I put in columns, just like a spreadsheet. I can subtotal those columns by any one or more of those fields by putting them in groups. I group my rows first, and once I group a row, I can then group a column if it makes sense. It's got to make sense. It's got to convert into consumable data. Otherwise, humans are not very good with data. In our human evolution, our bodies learned words as the last part of our human evolution. Now we're learning computer stuff, and that's a different, so not everybody is inherently, it's not good. Our DNA is not used to this kind of stuff. So if you're struggling with it, that means you're human. So again, so if I want to group by owner role name, I don't even know what owner role name is. I don't even think that's a thing. But it's fine. Again, I can search the fields here. I could as easily add the columns just by, it's hard to see my screen, I know, because the contrast is not that great in Lightning. But notice here, if I want to add department as a column, I can just add columns directly. I don't need to go to this list of fields, but it's there if you need to be reminded of some of the fields to kind of go over everything that's there. Now, some of the fields you may not see on pages. We'll talk about why and how that occurs in the class later on. And that's okay, because different users may see it based on the kind of work they do and how a field is relevant. But if you're building a report or a list view, all those objects fields are going to be available to you unless they're hidden specifically to your group of users. Like, for example, social security number might be hidden to everybody except certain HR people or certain business people who are in accounts receivable that have a reason for that information. But otherwise, you'll see every field that's available in the object. Now, a couple other big chunky filters, just like the folders that group the filters by kind of whether, which object and whether it's general or custom. You can also filter by the type of data in the field. So you've got text, you've got numbers. Notice I clicked the little lollipop or little looking glass, and then a set of, I call them field scope filters. Let's call them that. I can look at all my fields. I can look at just the text fields. How do I know it's just number fields? Because I let my mouse pointer sit over it for just a second, and I hover to discover. I can look at my number fields. I can look at my checkbox fields. I can look at date fields, and I can look at any pick list fields. So if I know that I want to sort by industry, I want to group my accounts by industry. Whoops, go up a little bit. I grouped the column, not a row. Let me bring that. And I could just click and drag these things and move them around or take them out. Anything I want to do. Like that's some of this, the art to report building, right? So whatever it is, you can find your fields that you're going to use here. If you know what they are because you're familiar with the data, you can add them there. And this creates the outline of your report. Now, let's talk about filters, because filters are what exclude data. In marketing, we talk about filters and multipliers, right? Filters are things that help someone focus. Multipliers add leverage. They kind of expand something, make something more done. So more expanded, multiplied in their impact. So now, so the first one is show me which contacts. So here we have a couple of filters. There's my contacts or my accounts. Does anybody know what the my in Salesforce means when you're looking at filters? What does my mean? You're the user clicking around, you see my. What does my equate to? I'll wait for somebody to chat it in the chatter or open up your mic and talk about it. Owner, exactly. You're the owner. It means you are the owner. And this report, anybody running the report, it's going to filter records for just them as an owner. It's a way to keep the data relevant. Do you want to use that all the time? No, only the time that it's worth, like it's your intention. So in this case, it could be your contacts that you own. You might want to show the accounts that you own, and then it'll show all the contacts. And there's sharing rules that we'll talk about in that regard. Or that I'm part of a team. We haven't talked about account teams, but account teams are when you need more than one user to have access to a record, and you can only have one owner. But if all of you kind of collaborate with an account, like multiple people collaborating with an account, you got to have a way to add those people to a kind of ownership-like role. They have some ownership in the results that get produced by that account. So we have teams for that. Account, opportunity, and case teams only, just 3 teams in Salesforce. So, or you could say all accounts, because every contact has an account. If I see all the accounts, I'll see all the accounts with contacts. So that's one. And then whether the created date matters or not. So maybe I want to keep, anything created after the last week, or you can choose whether it's a date. These are called scope filters. Scope filters. So there's some other names for these in Classic, but they are what they say they are. They set the scope of data that you're going to be reporting on as it affects data by certain things. So for example, maybe you want to run a report that's contacts, birthday equals, and you always want to make it, current. Let's do this. Current. I could do current and next month. Why did I do current and next month? Because it's February the 3rd. I want to make sure I get everybody that maybe I send out birthday cards the month before. So this way I'm checking. I'm looking at the current and the next month. So when I'm looking at all my February, if anybody got missed or somebody got added that didn't get the little checkbox, and I can do other things with it, blah, blah, blah. But I could just simply put, I could pick any date if I want, or I could just go to create a date. And in this case, for create a date, I just want to see all time. So that's the scope of all my records. All accounts, all time. If I wanted my accounts, last 2 months that I created, because the real question in reports that you have to answer is, what am I going to do about this information that I'm presenting? So how do I present that information in the most doable way? How do I make this information the most doable possible? We'll get to it. Now, you might say, Lee, I want all accounts all time, but I only want to see contacts that have been last modified. So I'm going to type modified. Contacts where the account was modified. And let's say I'm going to use a relative date, which is like in the last 45 days. So notice I can use a calendar date. What do you think the challenge with creating a report with an exact calendar date is? Let's talk about that. Why would you create a report with an exact calendar date?
Because it wouldn't show any counts that are like after that date.
Right. So what it is you're saying is there's some reason that that particular date means something. It means that date, like everything, like we had a new policy change on January 20th. So I want to see everything created from January. I don't want to see anything before the policy change. We'll deal with that, blah, blah, blah. But there's a fixed moment in time that date, because every time I run the report, it's going to be based off that date. I don't want to have my users go in and check. Why would I use a relative date? Well, if it's part of a routine, like a part of a routine maintenance, and you want to check everything in the last 30 days, because every week you check everything in the last 30 days, right? So you can do that. So you can use a relative date term. So like everything in the last 3 months, everything, and you can use words to describe time that's always going to pick the same lag time behind you for all of that activity or whatever it is that you're filtering on. Does that make sense? So exact dates are when there's something that date gets fixed and the report always runs off that one date. A relative date is relative to the day that the report is running, not when the report was created, not when it was blah, 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 a year ago, a week ago, that kind of thing. And then, so these are scope filters that can't be edited. Notice how it's got locked down there? Because you're saying the scope of the data is this. So I'm going to just pick, I'm sorry, can I unlock it? I can lock it or unlock it, right? So but scope filters are already manageable by the user. They can make quick changes on the front end of the report. But when it comes to data filters, specific data, there's a difference, right? These two are scope filters. We set that at the beginning. Now we're adding field filters, which is data. And you can choose whether to lock or not lock that particular filter for users when they make changes on the front end. So I'm just going to say I'm going to lock it. It's a relative date, and it changes the number of results that are produced in the report. Now look, if a report produces 0 results, that means you have too many filters, or your filters are saying it's true. There's nothing wrong with the report. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. The user running that report does not have any records that they can access based on the filters and the criteria of that report. So a 0 report is always true. You just got to look at why it's true. Now, so I'm going to go, so last modified within the last 45 days. And maybe I got a policy that says, hey, if all my accounts are assigned to active users that should be calling my customers every 2 weeks, and there should be some modification every 2 weeks. So maybe I want to see, or every month. So I want to see the ones that didn't have any modifications. That's the policy. So again, what is it that you're trying to what question are you trying to answer that the report can answer that tells you what to do next in your behavior? So I'm just going to put equal to, just because either way is fine, but I'm using a relative date. So every time I pull the report, it'll pull the last 45 days. I'm going to click run and test it. So I've got 37 with no industry. I got 1 with an industry of telecommunications. What does that tell me, by the way? What does that tell me? This report right now, what does it tell me about my contacts or my account data? It's a question.
Didn't you set it to where it was the last 45 days?
Yeah. Hey, I don't care about industry. Why am I reporting on it? Clearly, it's not an important field because nobody's added it. Nobody's maintaining it, right? So look, your people will only respect the data you inspect. if you need industry for marketing, and salespeople don't care about marketing, if you need industry for marketing for leads that the salespeople are picking up, guess what you got to do? You got to figure out a way to find that industry data and update it automatically, or you got to Salesforce your salespeople into putting it in for you, or give them an incentive. Either way, right? That's good feedback. Reports always give you feedback. Matthew got it right. You're not tracking industry, or I don't care enough about industry, but I can't complain about industry because I let people not put it in there. Then we're going to talk about that when we start looking at, well, what's most important? You can't make everything required, but what are the key, like here's the thing, and maybe I said that twice. One of the challenges is focusing on the data that really matters. And because there's different people who do different jobs, where does the conflict arise? Everybody's got something that matters to them. Everybody's got something that doesn't matter, doesn't impact them. And if you don't keep those lines of responsibility and accountability really clean, or as clean as you can, and you don't inspect, you're not going to create the behaviors where people get in the habit of adding the data someone else needs. They're only going to add what they think they need. Does that make sense? So reports and dashboards play such a critical role in adoption that I'll tell anybody here that works at a company that has sales going on using Salesforce. And that is, are your sales managers, frontline managers, whether it's your sales manager, whatever job you do inside Salesforce, if you're not having a meeting every week with your supervisor and them with theirs, in whatever the chain of command is, where you're leveraging Salesforce to review the most important data for all of the work that you do in Salesforce, your company's not using Salesforce. I mean, you're buying it, you're having people do stuff, but you're not using Salesforce. You're using something else. And so, like you're using memory, you're using Post-it notes, you're using a spreadsheet. You're not using Salesforce. You're kind of using Salesforce, but you ain't using Salesforce. Using Salesforce means a week wouldn't go by that your manager didn't see that you were not putting in information that was needed. Does that make sense? Okay, so reports are critical in that regard because that's the only way you find out what's coming back at you. And one of the measurements of adoption is complete data. But don't mistake complete data at the time a record's created. It's at the appropriate time is data being updated and kept up to date. So reports are a great way to find out if those things are actually happening as you deliver the reports. As your users use the Salesforce that you've delivered to them. So, any questions or comments about what I've shown you on reports so far? Okay, so again, if you go through the trailhead, you'll get through all of these same things that I was talking about building a report. And I want to invite you to practice reports, practice lots of different reports. Try to even create data that has, if you're using your live org, then go, whatever access to whatever information they've given you, create reports and see if you can, and look at existing reports and say, well, what would I do with that information? What good is that? Salesforce provides reports. If you go, let's talk about the report tab. If you go to your reports tab, you can see that there's a couple of filters on the left about all the reports you have. By default, your most recent reports will just show up on your palette. You could filter by the reports that are created by you but live somewhere else, could live in a different folder somewhere. Private reports are reports that you've saved yourself into your own private folder. And If you don't have any there, you haven't saved any there. It's a great way to take a report that's designed for a team and then save it as your own private report. And then you can customize it any way you want that helps you take actionable behaviors out of that. Public reports are just that. They're reports that are just out there in public. And if you go to the public reports folder in your org, these are what you might have called reports in the can or standard reports. Now, because you need to know it, I'm going to swap over to Classic and go to reports and just show you real quick in Classic how reports look, because it's still kind of on the test and it's something you ought to know. So if you can see my screen okay, there's a couple of things you might notice about some of these reports. Let's see. They all have, let's see. So I'm going to go to account and contact reports. There we go. So notice my reports and my public reports all have an action button. And that action button says customize, delete, or export. Now, that's because those are custom reports. That's why they have an action button, they have custom reports. If I go into one of the other report folders that's available to me in Classic, by the way, if you create a report in Classic, depending on where you save it, it'll be in there in Lightning. There are a bunch of what's standard reports that are built into Salesforce that you can use as a template, but you cannot customize them. You cannot use them on a dashboard because they're not custom reports. You have to have a custom report to use on a dashboard. That's on the test. But if I want to see this opportunity field history report, again, some of the same features and functions are similar. These are your quick filters, just like you have on the Lightning. In the Lightning report, when you look at it, when I look at, I'm just picking one. When I want to change some of the filters that are built into the report, I got some of these quick filters, whoops, where I can, show all leads, my leads, all those kind of things, the created date, the scope of the report. Those are all the same things that you have in Classic, a little different in Classic. But you can't, notice there's no save button. There's only a save as button. So if I go to edit this report, which is the customize button, it's very similar to the Lightning experience. They've modeled the Lightning experience off of the later. I don't know what that's something new. I want to look at it later. So again, you have your fields, but the only difference, and you can collapse your fields. It's just an itty bitty little, there's less filters. There's only text, number, and date fields that are available as a filter. The Lightning experience had two others that had check boxes and pick lists. You still have the scope filters at the top, my opportunities, all opportunities, my team's opportunities. I can choose the opportunities have another big filter in the scope, whether it's open or close or just close one or any. So I want to see all that. And then I can look at the edit field, because this is the report type is opportunity field history. So I'm looking at all of the changes to the fields in my opportunity object. So I'm running a report for that. And my edit date, I could do, let's do all time just to get a good scope on it, then run the report. Notice I can save the report, but it's really a save as, because I can't save these changes to the report, but it saves it as a brand new report. So I've got no records that showed up. So I have something wrong with my filter. See if I got it right. My edit date is all time. I might not have any tracking changes on that. It's a whole different thing. But anyway, but there's my report. So I thought it would be different, but there's something in the setup menu that I got to check. I don't think I'm tracking my field history. That might be, hey, you're not even tracking field changes. So that might be the case. So let's look and see in the last, current and previous 2 fiscal years, just for funsies. But then, okay. Show all opportunities, all opportunities, any. So just, I don't think I have field tracking on. But you get, so if I like that report, I just can't help myself. So opportunity fields, let's just see if I have it. Set history tracking, I don't think I have it on. Yeah, I haven't enabled it. We'll cover this down the road, but field history tracking is, I change the, I could, whatever fields I select, I can track those changes in the fields. I just picked the wrong report because I thought I had that done, but I guess it isn't. So when I go back to my reports, that will be one of my recent reports. I don't think it won't change anything because I wasn't tracking those changes. Let's just run the report now before I do anything crazy. Yeah, I don't have it all turned on yet. So we'll talk about how to do that. I just picked the wrong report. So let's just see my opportunity reports. Stuck opportunity is a great one. It measures how many are stuck. Gives me a little preview. These guys have been stuck in a stage for a particular amount of time. And so it's just saying, hey, do something, make an update on these, right? So again, in Classic, in order for me to save this report, I have to save it as something. So I'm going to call it My Stuck Opportunities. It gives it a unique name. These are my opportunities. And I'm going to save that in a folder. I'm going to just save it in public reports and go back to the report. So even if I go back to Classic, if I go back to Lightning and I go to reports, I'll see that My Stuck Opportunities is there. Same data, looking at it through a different lens. It's all that's happening. I can see what stage it's in. I can see how long it's been in that stage. And so whatever those rules are, we haven't gotten into yet, but you can just see it really quick. Okay. There it is. And that's the report. Questions, comments, or concerns? Now, formats of reports. Remember I said reports come in 4 formats: tabular, summary, matrix, and there's another one called join. That one is, it's not on this list. Interesting, that's not there. But you'll get a chance to practice this and get that complete in this particular trailhead. So for your reports and dashboards, formatting a report, again, in Lightning is really simple. In Classic, you have to actually manually say, I want this to be a tabular format. Yep, no problem. Do that, Zach. We'll see you soon. Awesome. Zach had to leave. You have a tabular format, a summary format, and a matrix format. I don't think my Essentials edition that I'm showing you in, your developer may have a join report, which will be the 4th format. So in Classic, if I choose the format, then I have to put the fields that make the matrix. In Lightning, when I edited the report, I only had to add the column or the row. So you first sort by row, and then you can add a column. So in this one, I'm sorting by stage. And then if I want to see by close date, it'll automatically create that matrix or pivot table, if you will. And then in my close date, I can group by week. Let's group it by week just for funsies. And then I can run it. And typically with a matrix, the details get in the way. So you can just easily see, and there's certain things that you can take out that clean it up a little bit. Again, these little controls at the bottom, you can have, different settings that you want to play with, depending on how it looks. That's a matrix report. So all I did in Lightning that's different is that I chose how I wanted to see my data, and it automatically formatted the report. In Classic, I've got to choose the report format. And then choose the field that I want to group by. And then I can add, it's just a little different way to get to the same result if I want to create a matrix report. In Lightning, I add the row, then I can add a column. In Classic, I choose the format, and then I add the field to whatever the grouping level that I need. Now, that's not as important for the test. It's just good to know the difference between the two. And if you've never done Classic and you're not using Classic, don't worry about it. They don't ask you about that because they're asking less questions about Classic as we move forward because more stuff popping up with Lightning. But what I like to do is this. So if you've got your org open, let's create a report together in Lightning. I want to create. So let's click on New Report. Let's just do one. No problem. And let's do just a straight accounts. An accounts report. So again, a couple of things that happen by default based upon the report type. And there's, right? Notice that I've got a certain set of columns that are already there. Those columns are already built in. That's one of the defaults. I'm kind of pre-training you about custom report types. In the future, when we get to custom report types, you'll see you get to pick which of these columns are there by default for this type of report. And you get to pick which fields are available, if any, that I might want to leave out just to avoid any confusion or avoid anything to mess around with it. I can take those fields out. So I got my accounts. You can see if I just run the report, quote unquote, out of the box, I've got two new accounts report. And if you want to say, well, why do I have those? And I can say, oh, let's look at the filters. They are my accounts created on or after January 27th. So these are all my new accounts reports. Like, great. Is that, how many days is that? 28, 29, 30, 31. Let's see what it's saying. If I go to my filter, my scope filter, it said on or after, it picked an individual date. So what does that mean? It means every time I run the report, it's going to show me all my new accounts after January 27th. What's the problem with that? They're not new in June, right? I'll have plenty more accounts to deal with. So this is where I could take a range filter and say, you know what? I just want the current. I'm going to go down to, how about just the current? There's calendar and fiscal. Remember we talked about the company information if you're on a different fiscal year. So this, when you pick a fiscal year, Salesforce does the math for you. So if you pick a relative date filter, it'll base it on your fiscal year if you've set up your fiscal year. So let's just say current and previous month. Now I hit apply. Then every time I run that report, it'll be this month and last month. Anything created this month or last month, now, and I can run that report. And now I have more records there. How do I know? Well, it's easy. It says current and previous month, and it picks the dates for me so I can see what dates it's actually using. So I can see, look, I've got, why does that one like that? Okay, so if I'm managing accounts, this tells me, hey, there's 4 accounts or 3 accounts I haven't done anything with. Let me go check my records to see, A, did I do something and not record it? B, did I not do something and I need to do, do I need to go do something or something else? Maybe I need to reclassify that client, those kind of things. So you can see, you could, like the date you last modified it, the date you had a last activity on it, who owns the account if it's not you. You could sort by account name, all those kind of things, right? So did everybody create their report? And if you need, I want you to finish creating a report, new accounts, new contacts, whatever one you want. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. There we go. Go create a report. I'm going to mute myself and I'll be right back. I'm actually going to pause the recording for a second. All right, there we go. So I'm going to unmute you in a few seconds. So if you're doing something weird, stop it or we're all going to hear it. So I'm going to unmute you in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I unmuted you. Some of you muted yourselves, which so you got to unmute yourself. So how was that exercise for you? How was creating the report in either Classic or Lightning? What did you come across? What questions did you have? Because what we're going to do next is dashboard. So, Gil, you got a question? Comment? Did that go okay? Julia?
Yeah, I've been following for the most part, but I was a little concerned about doing it in our org because, I have the admin privileges.
Yeah.
And if I do something, I want to make sure I can find it and delete it. So I didn't follow it, complete it all the way.
Okay. Well, I mean, give it a shot. Here's the only thing that can happen, right? When you save that report, when you go to save that report, if you're concerned about it, just save it in your private folder. So, I'm sorry I missed that, but when you save it in your private folder, it only affects you.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, thank you for that. Jules, Jazz.
Yeah, no, it was good. I think reports is one area I feel a little more comfortable just because we make them for work a bunch.
Sure.
So it was good. It was good.
Awesome. Amy, anything for you? Is the Pearl jamming?
She is not. I'm following along as you go.
Okay, great. Matthew, anything? Divya?
No, I'm good.
All right, perfect. Divya, was this good? Okay. Now let's talk about dashboards because I'm going to mute everybody again if you want because y'all seem to like that. All right. Yeah, unmute yourself. So in the dashboards, so a couple things you can do with a report once you save it. You can add it to a dashboard if you want. You can save it as something else. So if you go into a report and you like it and you want to, you don't want to, especially if you have administrator rights, you don't want to mess with that report. You can save that report as something else, preferably in your private folder while you work on it. And then you can take that report and make changes to it. If that works, then you can save it as something public for public consumption. Now, subscribing to a report is just that. You can have that report show up to once a day. So if you have a report where it's some kind of like daily transactional information, you can get it once a day is the most frequently you can do it. If you need it more than once a day, then what I recommend do is you copy the report, same exact report, same exact location, subscribe to one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Each one of those will run once a day, but you will, as the subscriber, get basically the same information twice. You'll get it once in the morning, once in the evening. And what you got to remember about that is when you subscribe to a report, it takes a snapshot of the data and puts it in the body of that email. Right? Even if you're in a daily, it takes a snapshot of the data, puts it in the body of the email. But when you open that report, you're going to get live data. So you're going to get data that is as of the moment you run that report. So if you ran your morning report in the afternoon, you get the new data. You just got to remember to do it. We don't like that. But if you take a snapshot of the report or a subscription to the report, then in the body of your email in the HTML format will be a snapshot of all the data. Basically, the body of your email will be the report. Now, I'm sure depending on the number of records in the report, there'll be a limitation. I don't remember what that is because I don't care. And you shouldn't care either unless you're doing that report and you need to know the number of records because it's part of your job, your day-to-day. But everything else, what do you care about remembering? It's no big deal, right? So, but when you open yesterday's report, if it's the same report that comes every day, right, and a copy that comes in later in the day, the actual report will always return the same results, whatever's relevant now. But in your email, you'll have that snapshot data if you want to go back and reference what things were in the morning to the evening, but only in the body of the email. When you open the report, it's always live data. So reports are always live data, not historical. If an opportunity was in the initial stage this morning and now it's in the closed won stage, you can never see it in a report with the initial stage because that's old news. So only what's new shows up in the report. Now, you will see it in the body of your email. That's something else. If you need to capture that data, there's a whole other thing you got to do. And what that is, and so another way to take a snapshot of your data is to export it. You can export the data every day, and the data in that export will always remain static, which is what an Excel file does. It takes snapshot data. It is not live data. Excel is never live data. It's always a copy stored on your device, limited to just your little copy of that data. Somebody else has got something different the moment they open that file because they can interact the file and there's no synchronization. It's one of the beautiful benefits of Salesforce. Now, so you can export that data and you can export it pretty like a picture, like the way you see it on the screen, or just the columns and rows of the data that make up the report, taking out all of the subtotals, taking out everything else, so you can do whatever you want to do with that data, usually to keep a snapshot of it. That's the deal with exporting a report. Now, you can delete a report, but only if you created it. You created it. You have to have the permission to delete the report, or if it's not a standard report. Remember those reports in Classic? So, whoops, we'll close that report. Those reports that I showed you in Classic, because they live in Classic as what's called standard report. So if I go to a standard report, there is no delete button, there's no save as button, there's no customize button because they're standard. There's no controls in the actions. There's no action you can take on them other than run them and then save them as something else. So that's just good news about that. So you can only custom reports can be deleted. That's something you need to know. And it's kind of on the test. They kind of ask to make sure you understand that basic knowledge, which is good. Any questions on that? Okay, now from the reports, the other thing that we do is like the report chart, we can also create dashboards. So I'm just going to go to my dashboard screen, my dashboard tab, sorry. And you can see the same kind of thing applies. There's the ones that you've created. There's dashboards that you've saved to your own private folder. There's all the dashboards that you have. Now, here is the tricky one. I didn't talk about it in reports, so I'm going to talk about it now. The way you get access to reports is through the folder. Anyone who has access to the folder has access to all the reports or dashboards in that folder. Reports have folders, dashboards have folders. You control access to the report and the dashboard by controlling access to the folder. So if I go and look at all my folders, I can see that there's an access button, an action button all the way to the right that will pop up sooner or later. Oh wait, public, let's forget the public one. Switch to reports. Go to my all folders tab in reports. And from here, I just want to see if it's so some kind of refresh thing happening with my browser. I don't know what it is, but I know it's annoying. I know I know everything about computers. Like when they're annoying, I know they're annoying. I don't know why they're annoying. I don't waste any time with that. All right, let me go into the folder itself. And I'll just control it. So in the folder itself are all the reports. Anybody with access, I'll click it here under share. Anybody with access to the folder can have access to the reports. So I can, you don't need to remember the details about this, but I can choose the groups that are available. I can say my entire organization has the ability to view all the reports. Now in your developer org, it may look a little different, but it's about the same. I just haven't opened my developer org yet. I want to get something with my data in it, and I had it open. So same thing happens with dashboards. If I go to all my dashboard folders, and because my little action button's not working right, if I click on the folder, you can see I've got multiple dashboards. And in my action button, I can do the same thing. I can choose who to share these with. Now yours, again, will be a little different, but fundamentally they work the same. So let me just explain this one more time. A dashboard folder contains dashboards. Dashboards in and of themselves are a palette of up to 20 components that represent reports graphically. Say that again. Folders contain dashboards. Dashboards are a palette that contain up to 20 components which represent reports. You can represent the same report, or you can represent all different reports. Each component is different. Now, when I open up a dashboard, you'll be able to see the most important part of the dashboard is right here, the as of date. Now, Lightning seems to do it more on its own. There could be lots of reasons why that is the case, and I'm not really up to date on why, but I'll tell you the party line. Dashboards don't refresh themselves. Question? Dashboards do not refresh themselves. You can create automation that will send you refreshed dashboards, but as a rule, dashboards don't refresh themselves. What does that mean? It means that the summary totals that you see are not up to date until you click the refresh button. Oh, I can't refresh more than once in a minute. So I'm going to go, because I think it might be confusing if I'm not on the same page with you. So let me go to my SuperHero. I'm going to go to my dev org now, because I happen to be in my regular org. I was going to do something. Remind me later. Okay, so if I go to my dashboard, I'm in class. I'm going to lightning. I like lightning. So just remember folders. Folders operate in 4 places. If I remember correctly, somebody knows different, please let me know. Reports, dashboards, we just looked at those. Documents, and somewhere else there's folders, like documents. Libraries may have folders, they may call them something else. Let me go to my sales dashboard, or my sales app, just because we should be in the same one. It's where I left it, not where I want to be. Well, I'm in the sales console. I don't want sales console. I want sales. Did I choose sales console? I did. Okay. So remember, in Lightning or Classic, there are 2 versions of the page layout, which is standard, if you will, and console. Console is very different. All right, so when I go to dashboards, and I'm in my dashboard folder now, and I'm closing out my org, I just wanted that. I picked it for some dumb reason. I was being lazy. So remember, folders. I don't have any dashboard folders. Okay, so I'm going to create a new folder, and I'll just call it SuperHero. I create the folder. The first thing I need to do in the folder, when I'm in the folder, is adjust the sharing settings. Like I decide who I'm going to share it with. I can choose, this is more better anyway, I can choose the individual users, their roles and subordinates, and their public groups. And I can choose which level of access. I don't have any users because it's just my little dev org. But sharing controls access. Sharing controls access. Now, I've got no dashboards in there, so if I want to create a new dashboard, I can. I'm going to call this one class demonstration. And I'm going to put it in my public folder. I can even create layers of folders up to 3 levels, which is almost too many. Folder, subfolder, and deep dive folder. Notice what I'm looking at right now is the palette. So this palette is the Lightning palette. In Classic, it's much more rigid. It's 3 solid columns, all the same width, and all the components you add are all the same size. In Lightning, you can add components simply by looking for reports. I thought there was no, yeah, I don't think you guys have any reports right now, right? That's what I think was the developer org hitch in the giddy up, which let's switch. Now we'll just create a new report. You already did it. I'll do one real quick just as a reminder. Really quick, look, I'm in a report. I'm going to do an accounts and contacts report. No, I'm just going to do an accounts report. New accounts. Leave it at that. Where's my little, oh yeah, I don't like my filters. I want all accounts created, and I want the current, say last 60 days. Life is good. Save and run. I'm going to save that report to a public folder. So I have something. So we just did that little report again. And so I got 12 new accounts in this particular org. Now it's a little different. I can take and I can add that to a dashboard. I've already created a dashboard. So if I select our class demonstration one, I could just, like, that's really simple, right? I just added a component. I can choose how to display it. There's no summary. So this is a problem with, like, it used to be a total game changer limitation. You couldn't add a report that wasn't a summary report to a dashboard, because it would screw up. Like classic dashboards were fixed. Lightning's a little more fluid. So if I add, I don't think I have any other reports, so I'm just going to click save. And then I'll show you mine in my org again. And I'm done. Let me click done. So now there's my dashboard with its, there's my dashboard with a report component. Now when you look at mine from my actual live org, you can see it's much more robust because I've got a lot more reports built into it. And so if I go to my sales results pipeline dashboard, you can see that, you know, got all this massive opportunity. I can look at all these different reports, and I can see all these different components in the reports that give me a quick overview of what's happening in my org. Now, I'm viewing this as Dominic Karuba. And we'll talk more about the running user of the report, of the dashboard and report, but ultimately, I just want to make sure you got the basic concept of dashboards and reports, how they work together. I create a dashboard to show me the summary data. And if I want to see the underlying data, I can scroll to the bottom. I mean, I could, at the bottom of the component. Oh, did I win that? Oh, okay. I can see the actual report that sourced that particular component. Now, in my chart, if my chart settings are weird, there's really no chart for this one. So it's just a dumb, because I have no summaries or anything in it. Just hide that. And when I see my chart, I can see, there you go, new business, Dominic Kruger, there's my little chart, turn it on and off. And if I go back to my dashboard, I can see the summary data. So again, dashboards are summary data. It shows you the subtotals from all those reports you did, right? So this is not a very robust one. Yours, the class demonstration, had not very much in it. So what I would say for the class demonstration is, in order to make this a little more robust, go to Salesforce Classic, go to Reports, pick a couple of reports, and then if it's a decent looking little report, just run it, save it, and then you can add it to the dashboard when you get back into it. All right, so we're gonna leave you here because the end of phase one is in this particular trail mix that I sent you earlier in the chat, and I'll send it out again in a second, is at this point, we're kind of getting done. We've done a little bit with, you know, we created a user. We looked at some things in the setup menu. But when we come back Thursday, I want this, all of this is kind of like from a user point of view, really using Salesforce, getting familiar with it. Then we're going to jump into phase two, which kind of is going to remind us of some of the architecture of Salesforce. And we will talking about moving around the platform, why you do this other thing. Then we're going to talk about the data model, data management. This will actually take us several weeks to get through, well, several classes to get through, because it's quite a lot of material and some of it might get confusing for you, but I think it's a good path. So any questions, comments, or concerns about anything, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So I think you can mute yourself if you got anything weird going on. I've unmuted you now. And if you're still muted, it's because you did it on your own. But thank you, everybody, for today. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we head out for the day?
Hey, Dom's Matthew. I didn't see the link for this latest.
For the second one or the first one?
This
Oh,
one
you know why I sent it to just Brian? My bad. Now it is. Phase 1 is in the last one that I did. So make sure that's complete. And then we'll jump into phase 2 once you have all your questions answered about this.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Unless I change it up a little bit. But so far, phase 1 and phase 2 seems pretty clear. All right, is everybody good to go? I want to thank you for your time and attention. I promise. Oh, here's what I'd like you to do. Last assignment. Salesandtechnology.com. Go to courses. Whoops. Hey, let me just type it up here. If you go to salesandtechnology.com, go to student dashboard. If you haven't gotten your login yet, create. If you have your login, you can just log in. But if you don't have your login, and then for have a voucher, I'm going to type the voucher. SuperHero 2020 is the voucher. And then when you register, that'll automatically put you in the course. So I'm going to log in. And again, we're still working on the navigation, making it prettier. But you'll have this course available to you. And you'll also be able to message. It's sort of like a little bit of chatter in here, a little bit of messaging, and then going through the lessons. And I'm reorganizing all this stuff. So don't be surprised when it changes. But you'll be able to get into the course and grab any of these things and see how your progress is doing. Any questions or comments about that?
Yeah, Dominic, I went on and it says I'm not enrolled. And I have a login though, so I'm not sure how to enroll.
The salesandtechnology.com, you have a login?
Yeah.
I will fix it.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. See if I'm logged in is the correct person. All right, I will figure that in here. I'll figure it out. All right, guys, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time and attention. This will be ready in a little bit on YouTube. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Divya. Good luck, Divya, next week in Austin.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thanks, Dom.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.